Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Race Analysis with TrainerRoad. This is where we use onboard cameras on fast riders, and we also use our analytics tools with TrainerRoad to figure out how to become faster cyclists. So Dave Christensen, our filmmaker's with us.
Hi guys.
A regular at this point, I guess, on these ones.
Yeah, I guess.
And our CEO, Nate Pearson.
Hello.
And we're going to take a look at actually a race that Dave just did, a road race. This is our first road race, actually. I guess we've only done crits and some TTs. So It's cool to do the road race side of things. We're going to look at a road race, a local one in our series here, and we're going to use the point of view from Dave in front and in back to figure out how he was using different tactics and putting out power throughout this race so then we can get faster. Before we get too much, or really before we get into this, I kind of wanted to talk about this race. It's been around for quite some time. It's like a local weekly series race, but it's one where we've even had, like you were mentioning, Dave, Lorenz Tendam has come out and raced this race before. We've had really fast racers that are training in the region. They come out and race it.
Didn't he crash, though?
Yeah. Well, I've raced it twice with Lorenz Tendam, and he crashed into me one time. So
that's your claim to fame.
Yeah.
The other time, what's interesting is you two were in a breakaway, weren't you, one year?
Yeah.
And then you guys got caught, right?
Yeah. We kind of got away near the end, and actually he attacked and I bridged up to him, and we were rolling through, doing turns, and as we got near the finish, he kind of looked at me to keep pulling, and I was like, no, you're the world tour rider. Why should I be pulling? And we got caught, and I think we got like 4th and 5th.
Yeah.
So, and then after the race, I was talking to him, and I was like, why? I mean, of course I'm not going to pull. You're Lorenz Tendam. And he's like, well, I guess you always learn something. I mean, even in a small little local race, it seemed like he genuinely was like, oh, I probably should have not played cat and mouse.
Yeah, he was treating you like another pro tour rider,
Yeah.
which is what he should have done. But
right. It's kind of interesting, though, to show that, like, even in these races, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because these races are relatively average Joes. Dave, you're far above average, but what I mean by that is that you're not like a world tour guy. I feel like we can learn a lot from these average races. And even when a world tour guy shows up, it's not a guaranteed win, right? In racing, it comes down to tactics and execution so much. Mm-hmm. So this course, it's in this, I guess, configuration, because it's ran in a few different ones, but it usually ends up being just under an hour, right?
Yeah, I think it's about 23 miles or something.
Yeah, I think so.
25.
And it ends up in this race, it's at about 6,000 feet of elevation, I figure, somewhere around there, 6,000 to 6,500. Yeah. Climbs up and then turns around and comes back.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the equivalent of doing a race on top of Alpe d'Huez.
Yeah.
So it's pretty high up. That's one of the factors. It's pretty hard.
Yep. It's known for having kind of some rolling climbs in it, one particularly steep one, but it isn't necessarily like a climber's course because the climbs aren't really that decisive, I would say.
This course has one really significant climb, but it's not a climber's course because there's so much time for the bigger sprinter guys to get back on. Mm-hmm. After that climb, there's still quite a ways to go to the finish, and that's usually how it plays out.
Yeah, and looking at your race, you did 286 for your normalized power, and then 215 for your average power. So that's a really surgy race, like super surgy. You can tell from that effort, and it was just under an hour long for that one. So. It's pretty exciting stuff. We're going to look at the time and zones and everything else at a later point, but with that, we should probably just jump straight into it. This race kind of has like you start halfway through the course in a strange way, go one direction, turn around, and then go the other direction, turn around, and then come back kind of to like where you started. So we're actually going to jump in where you turn around at the furthest most southern point of the race, and then we'll kind of go from there. Can you explain a little bit, though, because I think that usually these races are divided into A, B, and C, but in this case, you actually had, I guess, you guys were riding A's and B's together, so a bigger group than normal, right?
Yeah, there was a smaller turnout in the A's, so they just put us in with the B's, and it ended up being about 15 riders. Mm. But what I did see in this was some of these B riders need to be A riders because they were pretty strong.
So this is a super tight turnaround, and this is something that, like, in triathlon is common, In road racing, it's usually a little less common to have like a super tight turnaround like this. Dave, it looks like you're hammering it coming out of it pretty hard. I mean, you're sitting at 400, 500 watts.
Yeah, I wanted to go into that turn first or second wheel because to stay safe, and B, so I could accelerate and start to kind of hurt people because it's a little bit of a hill after you make that turnaround.
Were you trying to knock people off the group right here?
I just wanted to start making people tired. Was my main goal.
Yeah. So prior to this, the race really hadn't started really hard, right? It was a pretty easy rollout.
No, we rolled out really, really easy.
Yeah. So this is really that little turn was the first time the group really felt a hard pace, huh?
Now, since you said that the race is about kind of there's a big climb, but then people can get back on. Are you then trying to tire out those like bigger people and the sprinters on every single climb?
Yes. So for the type of rider that I am, for every hill that I can make it hard for these bigger guys, that's an advantage to me because it doesn't hurt me as bad.
So they have to rechase on each and every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and hopefully that takes something out of their sprint, I assume is what you're thinking about.
Exactly.
That's smart. Yeah. So you kind of drilled it coming out, and now you're sitting in. Were you trying to look for anything after you went hard like that? Were you like waiting to see something? Did you want to see something like a certain rider's drop back or?
I think if some guys had came with me and made it hard and we got away, I would have rolled a breakaway with them. But I did look back to see who was like immediately on my wheel. And like I said, some of these B riders need to be A riders because a B rider was right on my wheel. And I mean, that was a 500 or 600 watt dig. And
yeah,
I mean, most people, if you're a decent cyclist, you can do that a couple times, but yeah, this kid right here, I don't know what his name is, but he's
right
plenty
there.
strong.
So this is interesting because in this case, you really don't know all of your competition, or at least how they race or how fast they are.
No, it's probably the first time I've done this and that I didn't know a lot of the people because we were mixed in this AB group.
So because of that, did you have kind of like a strategy that was like a little more tentative, I guess, to like feel people out? Or were you still just focused on your effort?
I think that so a lot of the ways I go into these races is A, to get a really good workout, and B, to try different tactics because these are the perfect races to do. They're weekly after work. We all do them, and we kind of we all in the office look forward to doing these races. They're fun, and it's also a good chance to go beat up on your friends.
For those that are watching this too, this is actually a portion of the course that the Peter Sagan Dirt Fondo also has in it, which is it's a pretty cool spot. So in this spot, were you guys it can be pretty windy in these conditions? Was it windy that night?
Yeah, so the wind is coming from right or left shoulder off the reservoir.
Yeah.
And then another thing about this course, it's beautiful course. I mean, you're up in the trees and it's a little bit cooler than it is down in Reno where we live. So you can see right here, the rider on the front, Scott Waters, has us right over on the right. And that's because the wind is coming from our left and he wants to make it. And we're not going super hard, but he wants to make it so everybody behind us isn't getting a draft.
Yeah, I see right now your power, though, keeps jumping up from like 250 to 300, which for you, for the speed you guys are going, that seems like a lot.
Yeah, your FTP is about what? To give people an idea?
Probably like 320.
Yeah. So they're still like you're kind of surging up to threshold every once in a while, a little over it. That was a little harder dig as you move toward the front there.
Yeah.
But you're not really trying to make moves right now, right?
No. And I actually think some of this is maybe this guy might be a little less experienced racer. I did notice he would like surge as he would come through to do his turn. So that's kind of a thing that a more experienced racer doesn't really do when you're trying to cooperate. You don't, when it's time for you to take a turn, you don't like surge past the person coming off the front. You kind of just maintain your speed. And even if you're just creeping by them, that's fine.
Right.
But I did notice that happened quite a few times in this race.
The group looks pretty small right now. Have you already dropped some people?
I think a few people got dropped from that first little hit, but it's probably it's pretty strung out. I'm assuming there's probably 12 people, 15 maybe.
So already brought down a decent amount. Yeah, there they are. They trail back pretty far already. So in that situation, you were on the front, and it didn't look like you were jamming on it, going really hard. Was your goal there, like you were happy to let somebody pull around, and now you're actually dropping back?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of going back to see where the guys that I'm gonna definitely be going against later on, what they're up to, and this course is hard enough that you don't want to waste too much energy early, just because there's 3 or 4 good punchy little climbs that are later on.
Yeah, why be on the front at all at this part of the course when it's kind of in the flats?
To stay safe, and the crosswinds weren't super bad, but even in a small group, if somebody attacked and you were too far back, you might not be able to cover that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in looking at what you guys are doing right now, you kind of dropped to the back. That probably put you in a good spot to see like what the group is made of too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Since you were up toward the front.
Look at how low his power is too.
Yeah, just
100 watts,
cruising.
200.
Yeah, this race is really negative, and I mean that in that it's either on or it's off. Like people don't really. It's not super fast the whole race usually.
The climbs are kind of scare people enough that they don't just go for super long efforts like that, right?
Exactly. I think people are thinking about there's like 3-4 good little hills that you have to go over. Mm-hmm. And at this elevation, if you go hard over those hills, they hurt.
Yeah. So these guys, when you drop to the back like that and you're kind of sitting there, are you like, I see the guy that beat you, we looked at a criterium recently where he was the sprinter that ended up winning. He beat you by a wheel. Mm-hmm. I assume you're already building kind of like a checklist. Like, I have to worry about this guy. I have to worry about this guy. Have you already figured out at this point the new racers, or are you still waiting to figure that out?
No, I think the big climb, the one that we call the wall, that's where you know who's strong.
Yeah.
Because it's usually hard on the wall. So, and that's actually why I think I went back in, is just to try to save energy for that climb.
Mm. Yeah, if there even was a breakaway right now, would you chase it?
Probably not, because it's a really hard little 5-minute climb if you count both.
Yeah.
The climb's kind of in 2 parts, right?
Yeah.
So
it almost looks like you guys are doing a pace line right now, and I wonder why.
Yeah.
Because who are you trying to go away from?
Actually, right here, I went to roll through on this guy and look at my power. I went up to 370, and I went like, oh, I guess he doesn't want me to come through and help him. So I just went right back in. I remember thinking that. I'm like, huh.
And you're about to kick up in a hill, right, in about 15 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where I think that would be the part that you'd want to lay down the power.
For sure.
And you can see, like, you're toward the front, but I don't see many of the typical hitters that are at this race toward the front right here. They're kind of hidden in the wind because they know that climb's coming up, you know. Whereas I assume this rider here, he usually races with the bees, I think. I've never seen him before.
Yeah, I don't know. I can tell he's a mountain biker, though.
Yeah.
He's
Why
got
do you say
furry
that?
legs and long-fingered gloves.
Dead giveaway.
Yeah, so you just let him go right now.
Yeah,
Why did you do that?
It's not worth it. It's not worth pushing that hard right there because, and also we have a little hill coming up, and I'm getting ready to kind of give a little dig on this next little climb coming up.
So that would be the spot that you, like, that's the worst part to put out the most power, right? Right before the hill?
Exactly.
Into the wind?
Yeah.
Because everyone else just gets a free ride.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, right? And that's an interesting dynamic. It totally changes from the typical really savvy racers, even though it's a smaller group that you're with, into this being a larger group where, you know, a lot of unknowns throughout that group. You can still see that rider that was right on your tail. It looks like it's almost as if he keeps eyeing you too. I see him. He's eyeing your shoulders. I think he's marking you.
He's been watching these videos.
Yeah, he knows. I bet he knows. So here's the climb is just starting to kick up here.
So I went back behind Josh and Jose here, the one in front of Josh in the blue jersey, just because I'm gonna go and I want to make sure that I snap past them without them really seeing it.
And then by the time you get to the front, you've got a lot of momentum. Catches these guys completely off guard.
700 watts. You're hitting 800.
Jeez.
No, you're still
And there he is.
Wow, and that's a B?
He's marking.
Wow.
He's marking you.
Okay, no longer.
Still 700 watts. That's a hard effort.
That's Jose following too.
Yep. So right
And
there,
that's it.
Yeah, look at that. You're already, I mean, it's purely single file, but it's already big gaps already forming because of that effort.
Yeah.
And when you said you wanted to slip by them, were you waiting for them to like look over or move in a
No,
certain
I
spot?
kind of wanted to carry some momentum to get around them quick on that attack. If I would have attacked in front of them, I don't think it would have caught them. And it definitely wouldn't have caught them off guard. But it's kind of, that hill's not enough to get rid of guys like Jose and Josh. And you can see it's all kind of back together now anyway.
I noticed you guys had like a little bit of a gap, but it seemed like everyone rested.
Yeah.
So why didn't you guys kind of organize and try to increase that gap?
I don't think the guy in the red probably could have. I think Jose and I probably could have pushed on, and Josh probably could have. But I still think everybody's thinking about the longer climb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Is that something too, like when you get past somebody like that, or I should say when you put in a big dig like that and you see the pack still together, does that change your tactic at all? Because I would have assumed that actually you would have split the group up a little more by that effort.
Yeah.
You know, but are you thinking now, like, does that change your tactic at all? Are you saying something going?
I'm sort of thinking like, a lot of these riders are stronger than I think.
Or you're slower than you think.
Yeah, I'm getting slower. It's weird. This race has changed a lot too, since we've kind of lost some of that firepower in the A's. So I think this race is getting slower, but like harder because it's slower. But then when it's hard, you have to go even harder.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like a constant, steady, fast pace.
Yeah.
In this situation, we've got the sprinter on the front. You know, you're sitting in super comfortably, but he's probably got some wind to deal with across that meadow.
Mm-hmm.
He's sitting at the front, and you're just sitting in, geez, you're not even at 100 watts right now. You definitely, this seems like the spot where you would want to be. At least close enough so that if he tries anything coming into these climbs, you know, you could be close. But it's certainly like you're not burning a lot of matches. That's a smart spot to be in. Oh, here we go. So this is a climb that starts to ramp up pretty gradually, but it lasts for a while. It's not the decisive climb.
Mm-hmm. But this one will sap your legs for sure.
Yeah. So on a situation like this where you have the decisive climb and then a climb beforehand that's really not that decisive, but you could still do some damage, are you looking to preserve yourself on this sort of a climb? Or are you looking to completely gas yourself? Or like go hard so then maybe you can split things up before that decisive climb?
I think what you do in these climbs is you just follow the fast people. You just save as much energy as you can and follow the fast guys. But if you look at Josh, the one who's kind of leading us up this climb, he knows that he can make it hard enough that he can stay within himself, but also it's hard enough that people won't really attack him. Because Josh isn't the greatest climber, but I mean, my power is 390. Josh is probably doing close to 500 watts right now.
Yeah. And
I'm doing over 400, and he's 25 pounds heavier than me.
Yeah.
So he's setting a good hard tempo. I mean, this is not easy at all.
Yeah, you can tell. Looks like they're lumbering back there.
But if we put you guys together, you're a much better climber than Josh.
Yeah.
So why didn't you kind of hit it harder on this climb?
I think I know that having Josh in the group also benefits me too. You know, It's better to wait till later on because I've done this race several times where Josh and I have gotten away near the end and like worked together until the finish.
So you're hoping to have him as like a breakaway partner after the big final climb?
Exactly. Yeah.
And Josh is a really good time trialist, and he can put a lot of power and get really arrow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And everyone's still sticking with you guys. I mean, the pace has dropped for sure coming up to the top of this. You know, it's not quite as hard, but everyone's still sticking together at this point, which is pretty surprising to see. So another thing that I notice is that you've got a rider like Sergio Jose, that's so small in this case.
Yeah.
Do you try to avoid sitting behind riders like that to try to get, I mean, you're a small guy, but try to get a better draft?
I mean, Jose's quite a bit smaller than me even, but on this, it's not crazy, but in the flats, when I'm behind a smaller rider, I do try to make myself lower just to get more of a draft.
Yeah, he's a tiny guy. He's hard to get a draft off. And look at that. He's still pointing out stuff to everybody. That's friendly.
Yeah.
This course does have on the sides of the roads, it has some seriously bumpy stuff.
Yeah.
From rooting and buckling. So the known quantities, all the riders that you're with right now are known quantities, at least in the front. He's not behind you. You don't know how he races.
Yeah, I don't know who this. And then we've got Kevin Cassidy here. Kevin's pretty strong rider. He took some time off, but he's getting back into it. And I can each race, you can definitely tell his fitness is getting better and better.
Looks like the group got smaller too on that last climb.
Yep, it's already, even though that, it's the pace started hard and started to ease off, but I think it was enough to kind of split things apart. And once again, an interesting thing, the sprinters at the front going down a hill, the little guys at the front going down the hill with the big guy behind him. Josh is probably like, thank you, like I can just chill behind you and I don't have to even get down into a tuck, right? And you're in the smart place too, tucking in behind. I've noticed that with bigger riders coming down hills like that, like you can see that gentleman there rolling down the side, he looks like he's definitely a bigger rider than you. He was carrying a lot of momentum through there. It makes sense in a lot of cases to let those guys go in front than just grab onto their wheel.
Exactly, yeah.
You can save a lot.
And another thing with the main climb of the day here is there's a KOM on it and you can win money. So that's actually I was thinking about I wouldn't mind winning a little bit of money.
How much money?
Just $15. But that's your race reg back.
Worth it, man.
Yeah.
That's winning your race money back. So
exactly. So, and it looks like people kind of charged down that descent. When the rider that I was talking about was coming up, you can see a lot of these guys, they kind of look out of breath. They probably had to work pretty hard just to be able to, stay in contact. But everyone's trying to fight to get into a good position for this climb because the first part of the decisive climb is already starting right here, right?
Yeah, this is that first little ramp, I think, right?
Yeah, this isn't technically the wall quite yet, but this
it's a small climb before the big climb, right?
Yeah, it's the precursor.
Yeah.
I remember being kicked off right here before. Or what happens is you barely hang on here, but it's enough to be gassed where when you start the climb, you're tired.
Yeah. Are you thinking in this situation too that do you ever sag climb, I guess, in this position? Like roll to the front here, then go easy, so then you can gas it later on? Because I've been behind your wheel on vicious attacks on that wall.
This night I was trying to stay within myself on this first part because I wanted to win the money. But I'll sag climb, especially like in bigger races.
Yeah, look at your power.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything.
Yeah,
really.
this
You're
is
chilling.
Yeah, this is not bad.
We should probably define sag climbing too,
yeah,
right?
What is that, Dave?
Yeah.
So sag climbing is where you start the climb at the front and then you just kind of keep you're still riding hard, but you allow yourself wiggle room to like fall back through the group. So you're climbing hard, but you're also not climbing as hard, I guess.
Yeah, and as a bigger rider, that is such a great way to keep connected to the group. So this next climb is going to be about 2.5 minutes, and it's short enough where I always try to get to on this windy section to about second wheel. So when you start the climb, you can climb about 10 seconds slower and still be in the group or make contact with people. So that's actually where you're at, second wheel.
Third wheel looks like, right there.
Oh yeah, third.
Yeah.
So,
but you don't need a sag climb because you're one of the
especially
better climbers.
on these kind of climbs, I'm pretty good.
So this one's this climb, it's pretty short. I think that it averages 8.5%, something like that. It's pretty steep.
It's a couple minutes, maybe.
Yeah, it kicks up to I think 10 or 12% at one point in the climb. So it's a steep little sucker. And I guess now is really when it starts to hit. You have a bigger rider in front of you, Josh, and you know that he's usually not a fast climber. So is that why you moved like that? You kind of moved over to mark Jose.
Jose, I know I know that Jose's going to be the one that I got to watch if I want to try to win this money. And it's also bragging rights, it's not just $15. I don't want to sound greedy, but
right. Yeah.
I was kind of like in this. So see, we have a little gap here, and I'm thinking, is Jose suffering? Because I'm doing almost 500 watts.
Yeah.
So.
And he didn't close that down.
No, and I decided to close it, but I was more still watching Jose. I think Jose was playing games. And kind of making himself seem like he was suffering, but
yeah. So you're not going all out for you at all, but you're just trying to be in the group.
I think the biggest power I've done up this is I could hold 500 watts average up this, and I was well below that for this night. But that gives you a chance to save something at the end of the hill for the sprint.
So you're more pacing this, sorry, Jonathan.
Yeah.
You're more pacing this to win the hill climb rather than create a gap with the rest
Right.
of the group.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're back right there
Yeah,
with
I
the
went-
marked rider, with Jose.
I went back to check on Jose, and I actually didn't even know that this rider was still on my wheel, this guy.
He's a Nordic skier, is he not?
I think so.
Yeah.
He comes out to some of the group rides. I don't remember what his name is, though.
He kind of has that Nordic, like if you watch, he has like he almost like rides with his lats a bit. That's like
Yeah,
the Nordic
like he's going to
skiing.
like push
Yeah.
the poles.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
yeah.
right here, I just saw that guy blew, so I went right up onto Josh's wheel. And Josh is setting a pretty good. This
That's
is a pretty
really
hard
good
tempo.
for him. Yeah.
I mean, this is a hard tempo. And then
And then he
Josh
blew-
pops right there.
Yeah, he's like, all right, I'm good.
And we still have a little bit to go. And
yeah,
Where's Jose?
Jose's right to my right shoulder.
he's close.
He's actually out of the camera.
Does he want the money too, you think?
He wants the money.
And you could probably
here's
tell at this
Jose.
point, right, since both of you guys had kind of moved up, that he wasn't suffering as much as he thought,
Yeah.
or as much as you thought.
Yeah.
As much as he let on.
Yeah, exactly, right?
So we're still going. I think I'm about to go.
There you
Yeah,
go.
Here we go.
Launched
So I
It just
went.
shows how inside you were.
nearly 800.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And he almost, like right there,
He almost
Jose
hit
almost
you.
crashed into me. And I backed off like half a pedal stroke because I thought he was going to hit me. And I think he hit a crack in the road and it threw him towards me. And I think it might have cost me the sprint.
Yeah. He kind of like eased
Yeah,
off after
eased
that,
off,
kind of like,
Because
whoa.
it caught just that half a pedal stroke in a sprint is.
So you're basically not pedaling at the top here.
No, so I mean, I'm pretty gassed. That like a 800 watt dig at the end of that is pretty tough for anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Are you worried about him in this situation getting away? It looks like he kept the power down.
I know Jose cannot ride away from me on a flat road.
Gotcha.
It's just the way it is.
So that's why you're okay with him, because he's probably just burning energy,
Yeah.
you're hoping?
Is that also why you don't want to like bridge up to him and get in a break with him?
Yeah. So I actually sat up and I thought, just wait for the cavalry. And it seems like a small thing, but this guy catches me, and then I just let him pull me back up to Jose.
It's the way to do
So
it.
it's
Yeah,
it's
look
just
at
one
that.
of those little things you can.
He's to the front and he's pedaling for
He's
you.
gonna pull me right back up to Jose.
Yeah. Yeah, he's taking care of it for you.
So
Yeah, and you can already see he's coming back in. So that's an interesting point, because it's really hard. A lot of people ask the question, like, when do I know, like, what moves to chase and what moves don't, or to not chase? And I guess that depends on the course knowledge, but then also on your knowledge of the racers,
Yeah.
right? Those two things and how they interact.
I'm actually surprised because usually there's bigger like firepower, like you said, like Pete Morris will be in here. Scott Waters is very strong, but other kind of larger, fast people on the flats. Why you guys didn't try to establish, like right now, why aren't you guys pinning it? Because you have a big gap on a
Yeah.
bunch without the firepower behind.
I actually. So there's two things to that. I think it's more fun to race against more people in the end.
Yeah.
I think it's it's our
Because
weeknight.
your goal is to get a good workout and try things
It's
out.
a friendly
and
race, and it's kind of like there's times where it's good to smash it, or it just depends. And maybe it's also because I don't think I could have ridden away from all these guys that night.
Well, I'm saying just this group you have right now. This group should stay away. I bet it could.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
it's pretty thinned out.
There's some unknown quantities, the 2 riders that you don't know, and then the 3 that you do, which is yourself, obviously. And then you have Josh behind you, and then Jose toward the front. But Jose's still pulling. Granted, he's not pedaling super hard, but he's still pulling at the front. This is probably exactly what you're hoping for.
Yeah, and I think that, but he's also probably thinking, like, I do need to keep riding because I don't want any of these other guys to get back on.
Yeah.
So it does shift the onus onto him, and I mean, I'm happy to take turns too, but
Right.
I think around here too, I did tell Josh, I said, hey, if it comes to a sprint, I'll lead you out, because I was already thinking, the way my legs are feeling and just being a little tired, I was kind of like, this is probably going to be a sprint. So,
And you're not a sprinter.
no, I said, if it comes down to it, I'll lead you out.
Yeah.
And you're not a sprinter on the like, you mentioned that on the fitness profile, you don't have like a crazy high peak power, but a lot of it too is choice, right? Like you don't want to mix it up in a sprint
True.
and get and tangle up.
Yeah, I don't really enjoy getting into those scary situations where
You've had enough years of
yeah,
that, right?
I'm probably the complete opposite of a Cliff Bar rider. Like I don't really like going to the crits. And, crits are fun, but they build a ton of leg speed and they're very hard, but there's a lot of crashes. So
Now, how hot was it this
it
night?
was pretty warm.
Because the red guy, 34, he has 2 large thermal bottles and a bottle in his jersey.
In his jersey. And his jersey's unzipped. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, and then Josh, all in black, has 1 bottle.
Mm-hmm.
How do you decide how much water to bring on a course like this?
So on a course like this, you know it's going to be around an hour. You're probably not going to drink more than a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
So 1 is definitely enough. 1 tall bottle, like a 24 ounce, is definitely more than enough.
Mm-hmm.
We just did the math before this, and a 20 ounces of water is what, 550 grams?
Yeah, just about.
So-
That's not including the bottle.
Yep.
So you add in the bottle, it's probably darn close to 600 grams.
So the guy in red is probably, with the thermal bottles,
even more?
1,200, 1,300 extra grams.
Yeah.
You think
he's
about
right.
how much we spend to save 60 grams, right? We might spend $300,
It's
$400.
embarrassing.
And
Right.
on a carbon frame over aluminum, there's other benefits, but you might
Yeah,
be
yeah.
spending thousands of dollars when you just carry extra water and you
Yeah.
negate all of that.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And I mean, sure, maybe in this case he rode to the race from like the Truckee
Yeah.
area, maybe, and that's why. I don't know. But a tip for that is if you show up at a race and you did ride there, drop your bottles at the start finish,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And then you can just pick them up when you leave.
Yeah, like I did a time trial last night that had some significant climbing, and I didn't know if I'd need water during the race, but I wasn't sure, so I put like 2 drinks worth in the bottle, and was just to save weight, just in case I needed a little bit. I wanted to bring some, but.
So you had that turnaround there. So this is the final turnaround of the race. And look at Josh, he's waving guys through.
Yeah, that's a smart,
That's a smart move.
that tells me that Josh is getting tired already. I think we all are. I mean,
Yeah.
3 little hard pushes, and probably everybody worked that day.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're not super fresh like on a weekend race.
There's nothing stopping you in any race, though, from waving a guy through.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's something to remember. You can
Taking
always do that.
And now it looks like you guys are working together to keep a gap.
Yeah, I think now probably the hill is really hard, and I think it takes that stretch for everybody to kind of recover to. And
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely ridden it where you've like kept it going, but you're pretty gassed after that climb. So I think people are kind of happy to like chill and let it regroup. And
Turnarounds make it unique, right? Because you can actually visualize the gap that you have on the field.
Yeah.
That's like super helpful. Do you? One thing I've noticed is that when you turn around at a gap, it always feels like everyone's way closer than they actually
Mhm.
are, right? Have you guys noticed that too? Like,
Yeah.
you feel like, man, I feel like we had just a huge lead and we turned around. But I guess an important thing to remember when you're at a turnaround is to factor in the fact that you just decelerated, took a turn slow,
Mhm.
and then you're accelerating still, whereas they're carrying momentum in.
And you're going towards them and they're going towards you.
Yeah.
So it
So
makes
it's
it
twice
look even
as
faster too.
yeah, and it's deceiving. I in the Dominican Republic, one stage I was in the Breakaway, and it was a turnaround, and we had a 5-minute gap. Like we had 5 minutes on them, and it looked much smaller at the
Yeah.
turnaround.
Yeah.
It's just a weird thing.
It can throw you into a bit of a panic, I guess. So, like, it's nice to visualize and to see. I like to always use that time to see, like, where certain riders are. So then I can be like, oh, wow, he's off the back.
Mhm.
Or, okay, that person's closer than I thought. But I don't, like, count that time necessarily in that situation.
Now you're going up a hill right here and you're doing about 330 watts. Are you trying to like pop people off right here? Or?
Not yet, because I know there's a little bit harder climb coming.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And you still have that sprinter on the front.
yeah.
Things are going well for you in that
It's-
case, right?
I mean, Jose's riding so well this year. He's definitely taken a step up. Like
Yeah.
he's riding really well this year.
So he's going, the
There
guy
he
in red.
goes.
Yeah.
So at that point, he's not a known quantity, right? Like I mean, you haven't raced with him. So you just fall in behind Josh, but it does look like you're kind of peering out to keep an
Yeah.
eye on him.
Yeah, I definitely was waiting to see if Jose was going to chase it, and he did. So, and that right here, just as that happened, these two guys get back on.
They look pretty.
And
They
they're
look completely
gassed.
worked.
And what a terrible time to get back on when somebody attacks. Then you got to go even harder.
But then he got brought back
Yeah.
right away.
But
Yeah.
that's just the thing. If somebody bridges up to your group and you don't necessarily want them to help you out or need them to help you out, that is a time that you probably want to attack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, Dave, your strategy right now is you don't care about these people that are coming back because they're totally getting gassed coming back,
I
and
think
you're
that-
going to kill it later.
Yeah. I think that I'm not worried about. I'm more worried about the sprint. I think it's going to be a sprint. Really, I have a couple options here. There's a couple more hills that I can make it hard on, or try to get away solo on one of these little climbs coming up, or I can hit it hard in that last flat section and try to just time trial it to the finish. And then here I go.
There
There's
you
a
go.
little climb here.
Jeez, 900. That's a hard attack.
Yeah, especially what's your weight?
142.
What's that in kilograms?
What is that? 63.
63, somewhere around there, maybe 62.
Yeah. And I kind of looked back and I was surprised that
This guy's right
Yeah.
there on
right
you,
there.
man.
But then I knew that if I went, I do one more dig and just to see if I can snap these guys.
I'm
There
very
you go.
surprised
Up
after
to 500,
Yeah.
nearly 600
And
watts.
then I looked back and I saw that when I did that second little dig.
It was snapping.
But the problem was this climb's not long enough.
Yep. Yeah, so you're near the top already
Yeah.
on this one. And this is actually the top of going backwards on that decisive climb called the wall that you went up. So you know that at this point, too, you've got a big descent coming up.
Yeah, so I'm definitely felt that effort, but I'm going to try to settle in, take a small break. And I know that this is a 50-mile-an-hour descent, so I'm going to be getting some free speed right here.
So it looks like you're still on the pedals a bit, and now you just dropped it off, and you're going to coast.
Yeah, I think I realized that they were pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
And like you were saying earlier, Jonathan, about bigger guys descending, watch Josh.
Yeah, look at that
Watch how
cannonballing
fast he comes by me.
right
And
by
I'm-
Jose.
you're fully tucked.
I'm on the top tube, fully tucked. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so dangerous. Look at the lines, like the cracks in the road.
Yeah. And there he goes, and then you're trying to drop in right there and catch some draft.
He went by me so fast.
And look at your speed, how much it increased. You just gained about 6 kilometers an hour just off of
What we're
him
doing
going in
over
front of you.
50 miles an hour, 83 kilometers an hour is about 50, right?
Yep. Yeah. And look at how hard Jose has to
Yeah.
try to keep up with that speed. And meanwhile, Josh is still cruising, right? Small riders, you're at a huge disadvantage when things get fast on a downhill like that, you know?
I would say weight-wise, Jose and I are pretty close because he's pretty muscular. He's just shorter. So I think CDA, even when he's on a road bike, it's much smaller than me, much smaller than Nate.
And CDA is your aerodynamic drag.
Yeah. So weight-wise, I think he's probably close to me just because he's so muscly.
Yeah.
And so it's a group of just the three of you.
Yeah, that one, you can see these guys are chasing, but I think this is when I did decide to kind of contribute and definitely we could be going faster down this descent too. Jose's not tucked very well. That's why I'm going around him. I thought that to myself. I'm like, we can be going a lot faster on this descent. Maybe he's just not comfortable doing the top tube.
Tuck.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to see when Josh folded in behind you guys, how he wasn't necessarily concerned with tucking down. He was, up and breathing up. And there we go. You've got a guy that blows right by you.
Everyone's back.
Josh hand signals for some reason.
Now, you guys really couldn't have, because you would have spun out, right? Basically, the bigger riders are slowly rolling back to you because you're still coasting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah, I think when a 5311 spins out at 40-something miles an hour.
Now you're back on another climb right here. And this one is actually pretty this one's pretty tough.
This is the one where I've really, in the past, have gotten away and won this race or done well in. But we're not going hard. We're going too slow, actually. We're
right here.
The power's okay, but for me to make a really good gap, I need to be going closer to 30 kilometers an hour on this part of the climb
Mm.
because it's just too slow to really create a significant split.
Mm-hmm.
My plan was to go again on this climb, but it was too slow, so I figured I'd wait.
Well, I don't get that. Wouldn't you want to go when it's really slow?
No, I think on a climb like this, if it's faster and for the kind of rider that I am, I don't have explosive snap, but if it's fast and I'm come from behind these guys,
Yeah.
then I can make a bigger gap going over the top.
Yeah, it's not a snap as much as you can really pick it up in diesel kind of away. And this one's actually, this is, for anybody that it would ever do this race, this is what I find to be the most decisive climb, even more so than the wall. It's kind of sneaky. People don't think, but you can see these riders are seriously hurting, and you guys already have your group. Again, you've separated, and it's just you three.
And I kind of give a little, this is not a full-on attack. This was kind of just to see how Jose was feeling and if he was going to be able to. It's too late on the climb to really try to get away anyway. We're going over the top right now. But I actually kind of goaded him into coming around the front right there is why I did that. And we just that little push at the top gap Josh too. But Josh is a diesel. He's not a climber, but he will. I think if anything, this course teaches you not to give up. Like, even if you're dropped, you can still get back on this course.
Yeah.
And that's an important lesson in road racing in general.
Yeah.
Even if you're dropped, I've won races that I've been dropped. Like I've gotten back and won them. So you just don't want to give up.
Yeah. And especially one like this that has like frequent hills like this, it's like a lot of opportunities to recommit. And look at Josh, he's fully tucked.
He's probably descending 5 miles an hour faster than we are.
Yeah, and you can see he's coming back on you guys already.
Would that be even a strategy on a course like this, is if you're bigger, to get dropped and then just roll back?
I think stay within yourself and don't blow up on the climbs, and then just know that you can probably get back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you're with one or two other bigger guys, for sure.
At this point, you're not necessarily following directly on line with Jose. Is there a reason that you're not like following his line? Is it from the wind or?
I like to be a little out so I can see, because this road's kind of messed up, and you know we're going about 35, 40. You don't want to hit one of these bumps or cracks in the road. And I did think about this. You can see there's a lot of Jose kind of has us in the worst part of the road.
Yeah,
he's
has
taking
you
us
at the dangerous
right
point.
over all the bad spots in the
There's
road.
a couple
Right
spots over
there.
there that have roots too. You come over and they're really hard to see the roots.
Yeah, and you go
until you hit
over them,
them.
and it's there's so many of them in a sequence that it's easy to lose control of your bars.
Yeah.
You really have to
We're
be.
kind of echeloned right now too, and which is Jose should have had us right on the center line.
to give the group a better chance.
Well, no, to
make
if
everyone
he
else tired.
Wanted to make us honest, yeah. Because the wind's coming from right or right.
So why is Jose like in the lead? What is he thinking? Because so we all think that he's the best sprinter. Why is he pulling at the front?
I have no idea. If it was me, if I could sprint like that, I would just sit on.
You just hold on. Yeah.
Because even if the whole field was there, 9 times out of 10, he's going to
probably
win.
gonna win, yeah.
Chances, maybe he's got the same goals of just getting a good workout, right?
And he's seen how many ways he can win.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm going to pull the whole time.
It's not good enough to win one way.
Yeah.
We'll mix it up. And this is another little drag coming back, right? You're still climbing here.
Yeah, and this is another, I didn't understand. So he sits on the front of this until we get to the top of this climb, and then he wants me to come through and do a turn. So is he just being nice?
Yeah.
I didn't even, if you'll see, I don't even pedal. He's like, okay, he flicks me through. We're on a descent. I'm like, sweet, I don't have to pedal.
Yeah, your odds
That's
are
what
off.
I thought. I'm like, okay, I'll come to the front now.
So that's not the time when you want to flick somebody. But and
No.
look how hard he has to work there to catch back on because you were tucked,
Yeah,
right?
and I'm doing
and you were
0
in
watts.
his draft, and then you were able to move over.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I guess it's not necessarily the best tactic to flick a guy over the top of a hill, but do you usually look to do that, to like flick somebody through like halfway up the climb instead of at the top?
Yeah, but you could also argue that maybe he wanted to take that hill at his pace.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
So maybe he thought I would have made it too hard, or
Mm-hmm.
You should have flicked him back right at the end of the downhill.
I think I do right here.
Something that's really interesting that you'll see with like the good riders. You can see Josh, like he keeps open mouth, and I know actually from riding with Josh, he focuses on exhaling a lot when he's after a hard effort like that. And I think that a lot of the time when you're talking about breathing really hard like that, you really, man, look at how low your wattage is. Yeah, you're just chilling right now. You really like focus on breathing in, and you kind of panic because you can't, but it's really not about that. It's about, you're going to have enough oxygen. It's a gigantic intake there, your mouth, right? It's really about pushing it out. And I see Josh do a great job of that, of exhaling forcefully to kind of like get that air out.
Yeah.
Do you ever see like we have the camera and you can tell Josh is suffering. Do you ever see that in races and attack people when they're making that face?
Yeah, I can definitely tell by, especially the people that you race and ride with a lot. You know when they're suffering.
Is that like body English or?
Like I can always tell when Josh is suffering. I can tell when Aaron Rindy's suffering.
Because you ride with these people so often.
Yeah.
Do even, like I said, body English, do people pedal differently when they're tired?
Yeah.
They sit up more?
They get more like winced, and like one of the crit videos where Aaron was on Pete's wheel, you can just see him dying.
Looked like he was inside out,
Yeah.
poor guy. Yeah, it was pretty tough.
I thought about that too. The Tour de France is on now, and these guys, like, it's basically a road circus, right? You race, like these guys all race each other all the time. So you could say it's similar to you racing locally, right? You know all these people, and I'm sure.
I tell myself I'm just like Froome all the time.
Yeah.
But it's similar, right? You know, you know, like
totally.
The sprinters know all the sprinters, and they know their weaknesses and strengths, and they probably know what faces they pull when they're suffering.
And Josh just skipped a pull.
And Josh is tired. I know Josh is tired, and I don't mind towing Josh. Josh and I used to be teammates, and he's a good buddy of mine, and he's a great sprinter. And I'm already thinking like, this race is not going to be mine.
Yeah, because Josh is too tired. Then Jose is looking super strong still.
Well, even Josh tired is a much better sprinter than I am.
So it's you versus two sprinters.
Right.
So why pull it all in the front?
This is workout time.
Okay, so right now you've kind of given up.
Yep.
And maybe something special happens.
So you guys all three of you are away. I can't even see the pack in the background. Do you feel like are in your mind at this point in the race, were you thinking, okay, it's just down to us three? Like we've got a good gap?
I definitely thought this was the three that were going to stick it to the finish.
Yeah, which makes sense.
If it wasn't workout time, what would your strategy be?
I would just sit on.
Sit on, not take any pulls.
Yeah. And if everybody started soft pedaling, I'd attack them.
What if they yelled at you to take a pull?
I just would not do it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even. The best thing to do in that situation is don't even engage. Just don't even respond.
Don't talk to them.
Don't talk to them. It's not worth wasting energy if somebody's trying to goad you into.
You don't have to explain yourself. That's what you're saying.
Certainly don't heed their direction. When you think about it, who in the world in a situation like that is going to give a fellow racer good advice, right? Like, to help them out.
That's their
right?
strategy. They want to make you feel guilty for not taking a pull or something.
Yeah. Well, since they're both better sprinters than you, and they both know this, they want you to. I mean, they want to stay away from the group, but they want you to do as much work as possible to get you even more tired. Yeah, and
to help keep them away.
Exactly, keep them away.
Yeah.
But Jose's still doing long pulls at the front.
Yeah, I don't.
Although
think
the pace isn't too hard, right?
We're already starting to play around.
Yeah.
This is what I mean about the negative racing. Like I've definitely, like we were talking about Lawrence Tendam, when I did this racing with him, and we were off the front. We were doing 400-watt pulls.
Hard ones.
It was much faster.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So this is kind of my
because
last
it wasn't
ditch.
Hard enough. Is that why you went for it?
And this is kind of my last ditch effort. And you can see I took us right over to that line.
Smart.
So they're not getting it. They're in the wind as much as I can put them while still being safe. And
we should say there's a rule that you're not supposed to cross the center line.
Right.
Yeah, and you can see.
Yeah, you heard him.
Yeah, he was wincing, and you were. I don't know if you noticed that too. The first thing he could do is he was fought to get as close to that yellow line as possible.
Yeah.
To try to get into any semblance of a favorable
How
draft.
did you feel after you did that?
I was a little tired. I think if my legs would have been better, I probably would have hit them right after they caught me again.
Yeah.
I would have went right to the back and then just went again, but I didn't have it.
Yeah.
And why would you attack from the back?
Just to get a little bit of a slingshot off of them and to catch them off guard.
So you could accelerate more by the time they see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I feel like, yeah, I can see that they're actually, the riders are in the background. And I don't know if it's just that I can see it from the angle that I'm at now, like just with the long, I guess, view that you have compared to earlier in that canyon. But looks like Jose, he's like taking drinks.
Yeah,
the wattage is still super low. He's definitely, at this point, you're probably thinking all these signs lead to him wanting to sprint.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think at this point, I'm also resigned to just doing a good lead out for Josh. I was thinking about doing one more dig, but they're both so snappy. It'd
be hard to be able to break them off, right?
And I it's not a complaint about me not having a sprint. I don't really train my sprint, so it's also my fault.
Yeah,
if I trained to sprint, I could probably get better at it.
Right.
Is there any worry right now that the group's going to catch you?
I actually didn't think they would. I was not thinking that they would.
Yeah.
But they're probably working together hard, right?
And they're still, I can't really, I just see them there. Yep. They're just coming into view. So at this point, yeah, you're sticking toward Josh. Mm-hmm. You're not taking poles at the front.
We should say that we're kind of on this long drag that's coming up towards the finish, and it
sucks speed.
It's like
a 2%er, right?
And if you go too hard early on it, then you're not going to have anything for the sprint. So basically, all of us are just looking at each other.
It's usually a pretty windy spot through this section too.
Mm-hmm. The wind usually comes from right or right.
Ooh, they're catching.
Well, yeah. So are you guys even looking? Do you guys know this?
I did not even know that this was happening.
And you're only doing 100 watts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're just thinking, I'm going to lead out Josh.
Oh, they're really coming out.
Those two, and there they are. Holy cow.
And you guys could have stayed away.
Yeah, for sure.
If you worked together.
If you weren't playing games, right?
Yeah, we were just watching each other.
When do you realize they're back?
I think I realized it right as this guy in the red came up.
So he went straight to the front,
and then I jump on that. Honestly, that kid should have just drilled it.
Yep,
he could have caught us. And then I'm like, okay, we're
right at the finish.
Yeah,
you're leading Josh out is the goal.
Same thing again, going over to that yellow line. He's getting a draft, but Jose's in the wind. And then Josh yelled at me to let him through, and I did. So I gave him just opened up that.
And he got it?
I don't know if he got. I don't know if he won. I don't think he did.
Yeah, it looks like Jose just got him at the end.
I think Jose pipped him. Yeah.
So you were job done at this point. You're just coasting across the line, right?
I was. To be honest, I was totally cooked. I was really cooked.
No, his job was done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was pretty tired.
So races like this, if you look at it, you talked about a variable effort. And when you look at the time and zones that you spent there, you spent nearly 6 minutes of that time coasting, which is pretty crazy, right? And when you look at that, it seems like a lot. But man, look at it. It's active recovery, and then you have a lot of time, 11% in the anaerobic zone, which is actually really high for a race that's an hour long.
Well, more than VO2 max.
Yeah.
Or threshold.
Exactly. And then if you add it up, you're pretty weighted. You don't have a whole lot in sweet spot. Some in threshold, but not a crazy amount for what you'd usually see in like an hour-long effort. But man, look at that. Active recovery, coasting, and then that anaerobic effort.
Mm-hmm.
So really you were saying that guy in red at the end, because they were coming up so fast on you guys, and it was pretty close to the finish, he should have sprinted as hard as he can. And you guys wouldn't have noticed. I mean, you would have noticed, but you wouldn't have reacted in time.
Yeah, I mean, with that much speed coming in up on a slow moving group,
yeah,
if he would have, he might have won.
Yeah.
One of the most frustrating things to me when I first started racing with the A's and I started racing with fast guys was all you fast guys, as soon as you would catch us in a group, you would attack us. And it was so hard, right? Because then you have to work. You just worked really hard. Then you have to work hard again. I can't say how important that is, that when you catch a group like that, even though you're tired, remembering everybody else is tired, if you can throw attacks as soon as there's a catch made, an attack should happen, right? Yeah. And if somebody else isn't attacking, you should be the one making that attack happen. And if you do that, you can really thin things down and
especially if team tactics are playing into it. I mean, that's basic the way you do it. Once one of your teammates get brought back, then somebody else goes. So it definitely, you're either attacking or thinking about attacking. Like, when am I going to attack next?
And when you attack, like, so I attack and I like put it all out. Like, do you do like a 90% attack or like, or do you go as hard as you can?
I know what it feels like if I'm going too deep, probably. So I think that's my barometer. Like if I'm going too hard.
Yeah.
But I know that I have a few, maybe 5, 6, 7, 800 watt digs in a race.
Something that I notice is a lot of racers that just do full on like field sprint attacks throughout the whole race. It seems like that zaps them more than if they were to hold back maybe that 3%, that 5%, and do a sprint that's almost as hard. Chances are they could hold that sprint a little longer, but they're not going to that absolute peak intensity. And then when you go all the way up there, you're draining some energy systems that really, it takes a lot longer to replenish creatine, phosphate, and everything else. So it's a lot tougher.
Well, that's what I've learned from you and Pete. You say like, this was a test attack. And I'm thinking like, I've never done that. It's either 110% or nothing. And then if it doesn't work, I'm like getting knocked off the back, right? Because you're so tired, you can't get back on.
I think if I really wanted to win this race, I would probably just sit in the whole time. And when we got to that last climb, that last significant climb before you drop into the valley, that's where I would go all in. If I wanted to just save it for one attack on this course, I'd probably do it there.
Yeah.
And then just try to time trial all the way.
You need the finish line up like 3 miles. And then you'd win every time.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody, on this one. It's been a ton of fun. I really like the road racing aspect of things. It makes it cool. We'll have more race analysis videos for you. And please, if you're watching this right now, let us know down in the comments below what sort of racing you want to see from us. I've said this before, but you can send us out on errand. So like you could say like, Dave, I want you to try that move at the very end and see how it works. And Dave will go and do it. So
we'll put the local race schedule up somewhere where you can see it. And if you see a race coming up, tell me. Well, Pete's gone, I guess. So I'll go do it. Tell me what you want me to do.
You can find that in the TrainerRoad Ask a Cycling Coach podcast Facebook group. You can look that up on Facebook. We'll put that in there for you. If you like what you've seen here, subscribe to this channel and stay tuned for more episodes like this. Like the video, share it with other people. And if you're curious about everything we do here at TrainerRoad, whether it be the app, the training plans, the podcast, the analytics tools, just head over to trainerroad.com and check it out for us. We appreciate it, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.